And so when you see this inability of a party to get traction with these voters, and they are frustrated, they call them lazy, and they say they're not paying attention and they're stupid. It might be not that. It might be that they need a reason to vote for a given party.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes right down to the local level. We always think of the party as the national politics because that's what's on television 24 hours a day, multiple channels simultaneously. That's where our focus is always directed. So we're not paying attention to the school boards and the townships, the counties and the state. But it turns out those school boards, the townships, the counties, the state are affecting our daily lives in a major way. And it's these county parties that will determine what direction these goes. Because we only get two parties. That's all we get. Right? That's determined. We're not going to have a third party. So we either get active in these parties or not. Now, in Bucks and in Chester County, there is a change coming because there are longtime leaders that have been in place for several years who are now not running again. So there's a chance to elect new leadership. In Chester County, there is a gentleman who is running named Dave Buckta. We asked him to be on today, but he's at the state committee meeting in King of Prussia, so he was unable to join us. So we asked his competitor, who's just announced that she's running, to join us for this segment, and her name is Ada Nestor, who many of the people who listen to this show would know well because she has been on the show many times as a co-host, and until this last few months where she's been off. So Ada, welcome to the Conservative Voice on WWDB AM 860 in Philadelphia again.
Hello. It is so nice to be back on the air with you after a few months of silence on my end. It's so great to be with you both.
Yeah, and so now we have this contest for county chair in Chester County. Now, the former chairman, his name is Rafi Terzian. We've had him on the show. We've had him at town halls, and know him very well. We worked very, very hard to help him in the early days of his time there, and he's not going to run again, just like Pat Poprick in Bucks County isn't going to run again. So, of course, the current executive team formed up around a guy named Dave Buckta, who's the current executive chairman, and said, okay, we're just going to kind of run that and continue what's going on. And then you decided to jump in and rattle the cage a little bit. So
overturn the apple cart, if you will.
Yes.
I did. I actually, we convinced a lot of committee members to stay on committee this year when it came time to circulate petitions or to, enact some write-in campaigns to fill committee seats locally in our own committee. And, the commitment was made that there is new leadership coming. Don't lose hope yet. And I was really excited about the new slate, and this was not on my radar at all. You'll remember in 2022, we did struggle with the Mastriano messaging and getting that messaging out.
Absolutely.
And, we pushed back on the committee when they were looking for re-election in 2024 for 2 more years. We asked about the messaging. We asked how things were going to change, and we did give them, ultimately, another chance for 2 more years to see if we would have any improvement across the board. This year, we thought we were getting a new slate, and on the day of the first regional meeting, we were sent a slate that includes many holdovers from the last 4 years. And it did sort of upset a lot of committee members, and I had to spend some time to really think about what it was they were doing and what the answer to that would be. And after publishing an article, doing a ton of research at the numbers for these races over the last few years, and I guess pressure, happy pressure from other committee members calling me after reading my article and asking me to consider doing this, I decided to jump in.
So now you jumped in, but not alone. You jump in with a team of people. And, some of the names are here now. Christopher Glover is on this list. He was on the show a few weeks ago. He's just on.
Yeah.
And he's a state committee member in the Republican Party. We've got a woman named Felice Fine that some of our listeners may know because she is on every week, most weeks. She's, of course, off today because she's also a state committee member. So she's at King of Prussia at the state committee meeting. And we have a woman named Sandy Bowman, who was a precinct committee member. I think I can't remember how many years she did that, like 4 or 5 years. She's been involved as a volunteer, as a patriot for a very long time. Her husband's run for office. She has been incredibly active, really understands the issues, and frankly, on things like election integrity, she is a source we use all the time for details on exactly what election law says. I mean, she's incredible. There's a woman named Jenna Nicholas who was a candidate for county treasurer, I think, a couple of years ago, right? And has been active.
Countywide, yeah.
Has been very active for a long time. Sally Mininger, who we know well, she's come to a lot of our town halls. We know her. She's been a dedicated committee member. She's really put a lot of work into the sort of movement to save Southeast Pennsylvania as it's turned blue and gotten bluer and bluer despite no change in the demographics. And then Kate Collins, the candidate for RCCC Assistant Secretary. So you put together a team like this pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some complaints I've heard in the last week was that we waited too long, and it's a bit unfair to committee members, and I certainly understand that feeling and frustration. We feel that frustration too. But once I made the decision, I started reaching out to people I knew had really strong attributes that would complement me. I am nothing if not self-aware, and I understand my weaknesses greatly. So I certainly built a team of people who are strong and who have really great experience in this environment, in this political environment. This is a political position. We are a political organization, and our efforts should be motivating our voters to get out to vote. We should be touching them on a regular basis, putting out media to them, outreach, events. There's just so much we could be doing that we're not doing and haven't been doing. So it's exciting. It's really exciting. All of these people signed on to the slate within 12 hours, and it was quite a humbling experience.
Well, that's tremendous. And I can tell you, of course, I've worked extensively with Chris Glover and with Felice on messaging. So these are folks that have put a huge amount of work in the last few years, putting up billboards, driving messaging, in 24, pushing hard on messaging to motivate people to vote. This is the group, we talk often about this effort we did a few years ago where we were able to increase turnout from this projected 22% to about 68% for a specific targeted cohort of voters. And these were low propensity voters. And it was Chris and Felice and a few others that were involved in that drove that. So these people understand how to reach and motivate voters. I know that because I've sat next to them while they're doing it. This is I know some of these folks, so I know it's a good team. How do one of the things that I was surprised by is that the current chairman, Rafi Terzian, who's been in for like 4 years, waited so long to tell everybody he wasn't running. Because I know there were discussions about people running for this position, and then it was sort of concluded that Rafi's going to run again, and that and other reasons folks decided not to run. This then changed all of a sudden right after the primary, and then this new slate was announced. So there really wasn't much time for people to figure out what they wanted to do and react.
Correct. And, I actually think one of our strongest points is that we act with urgency in everything that we do. And so when it came time to put together a slate and a platform and all come together to agree to work together at this, unified messaging and intentions, that's a strength that we have. We are able to pull things together very quickly. We're able to make it make sense in plain language. That's something that I work on a great deal with my own personal writing. And, I hope that everyone that has had an opportunity to read the platform and learn about these slate candidates are excited for Tuesday to vote for us.
Now, tell us a little bit about this platform. What are you thinking? How would you change the outcome? And to set the stage, we all have watched Southeast Pennsylvania without any change in demographics because we did that analysis and disproved that theory. It wasn't that there was some, surge of leftist migration into these counties. That wasn't it. These counties changed without mail-in ballots and without a surge in leftist residents. The electorate didn't change, but in county after county, the Republican Party grew less influential, less powerful year after year until now in Chester County and some other counties, you basically can't win anything. What is it that
I
you
think
think you could do to start turning that curve, turning that corner?
I think we need to not be afraid of getting some attention and creating some good trouble. You know, people have sent all of their political text messages to a spam folder. My phone does that as well. Emails get sent to spam. It is so hard to reach the voter, and we need to be reaching them 4 or 5 times before a general election. I
Absolutely.
think we need to utilize more than just texting. I almost think texting is the last thing we should be doing. We need to be door knocking. We need to be mailing. We need to be doing pop-ups. We need to be doing targeted ads on YouTube. We really need to reach these voters where they are touching every single day and as often as possible. There's been a lot of investment in the building in Westchester. There has not been a lot of investment into messaging and getting out our policies and what we stand for to the general voters. And when it comes to fundraising, goodness, we have such a fantastic plan of rebuilding the coffers for the Chester County Republican Committee. We have brought someone in to lead our fundraising team who has been responsible and played a part in saving an elite educational institution in our community, which people will learn about later. We are not looking to fundraise for this committee from the pockets of the volunteers who have done so much already. We want to bring in outside money because our messaging works, because our plans are solid, and because they want to play a part in rebuilding this party.
So you keep going back to the point, you got to reach the voters. And it's something that clearly the Republican Party struggles with. And there are macro issues on the national level, Thune's behavior in the Senate, for example. And on the local level, there just hasn't been that effective an effort. It just seems like turnout is challenging and voters are sort of disgusted. In some cases, they feel like there's no reason to vote. You think you can crack that code and help these candidates reach those consumers, those voters?
Yes, yes, I truly believe, and it's based on my own personal experience. I am someone who takes very strong positions, and of course that means some people on the opposition are not going to agree with me all the time. I expect that. However, because I take strong positions and stand by them, other people stand up behind me. The amount of people I have met over the last 6 years since I got involved in Chester County is innumerable, and they're motivated by action, not by weak messaging, not by we get along with everyone and don't offend anyone. No, we need to stand for our policy positions strongly and hope that other people want to be strong with us.
Yeah, I think that's critical. And one of the things that we've all been frustrated by is this lack of unity. If you listen to this discussion we just had about Ireland, the Irish will be compelled not to resist and defend their country under the brand of unity or loyalty. And so they're going to lose their country if they stick with that. It's been similar in the party where we've heard call after call for unity, which really turned out to be compliance. It wasn't unity, hey, we want to hear what you have to say, or we think these issues are important. It was unity, do what you're told, vote for the candidates you're told, we'll select everybody in the primary, and you'll do as you're told. And that turns out compliance is not unity.
No, and it's really turned a lot of people away. It has made a lot of longtime committee members drop off committee. It has really, there needs to be excitement in our volunteer base. They need to be excited to go out there and drive our messaging and talk to strangers. This is not for everybody. It is hard work. And if we're not behind the scenes supporting them and making that easier, then what are we doing even? That is the point of this. We need to promote our messaging, elect our candidates, support our committee members, and drive excitement again for these voters.
In Bucks, we've had about 8 years of conflict between two wings of the party that just takes all the air out of people's lungs for enthusiasm. So it's nice to hear how motivated you are down in Chester.
And you would think
Thank
8
you.
years you could bridge that gap and bring people together. But if you just say unity, meaning do what we tell you, it's not going to work.
Well, yeah, it's I think it's about $150,000 in legal fees so far. So it's been the beast is being fed, not there.
Right.
It's not being resolved.
Well, and the experience we've seen in some national politics, state politics, and local politics, it seems that the fight against Republicans by the party is stronger than the fight by the party against Democrats.
Yes.
That's the way it seems to me.
Correct.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
I feel the same way. It's interesting, though, because 4 years ago, we did unify and come together to elect the slate that we thought we were getting. And unfortunately, after that new slate took over in 2022, we really learned something differently over the next year. We were slowly removed from invite lists. We stopped getting emails communicating, what was going on in the party. Candidates were warned to stay away from us, except we were the ones having events and talking to voters on a regular basis. So
sounds very similar to the Right for Bucks situation in Bucks County.
Yeah, so it's almost as if they cut off their nose to spite their face when it comes to voter engagement and outreach. And, we're joyful warriors. We have been in this happily fighting, talking to everybody, training people, learning what we didn't understand to make sure we were intelligent when we did so. And we just want to do that with everyone else. We want to bring that back to the party and bring some joy and unity back.
Well, and that's got to happen. I mean, this party has to come together in order to begin to fight the real fight, which is not the fight to see which candidate gets a job. I don't really care who's getting the paycheck.
Yeah.
What I care about is the policies that are enacted. And, what I care about is that our schools get better, that our townships are run more efficiently, not with ever increasing taxes, that this county begins to run elections effectively and securely, not this, what we've had these last few years, just a clown show.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm looking for in these counties and in these townships and schools. And it seems to be that's what the public wants as well.
Yes. There's an appetite for change, for sure. And the phone calls that we have all been getting since I announced and the slate was released in support of what we are trying to do here have been so inspiring. And you can tell people are tired of the status quo and want to shake things up.
Well, I think it's great just at least to have a choice because, as the primary's been eliminated, as the party's gone to earlier and earlier
endorsements and recommendations.
Right. So there's just never a primary. And I will tell you, when you look at turnout in this most recent primary, there are people that said, there's literally nothing for me to vote for. I have not a choice to make. So, well, what about, lieutenant governor? They didn't even know there is a lieutenant governor on the ballot. It didn't work. And we got, not very strong turnout as a result. Now, in Bucks County, we have a little action as well. What's happening there?
I saw that.
Yeah. So, Chairwoman Poprick has decided not to run for re-election. And we've also had this bylaws committee going on since April to hopefully resolve some of the sticking points in this lawsuit in outside of court and save everybody some money. So Ted Christian, former Trump campaign, I believe, state chair, and he's a lobbyist, and he has quite the resume. So he stepped up. He offered to run for chair. And Linda Mitchell is going to be running for vice chair. Linda Mitchell, she, I believe, her and her team have been the largest Trump donor. They've collected the largest amount of donations for Trump. I believe it's over $15 million. And she ran an organization last year called Bucks County Votes. And people are very excited to have her actually affiliated with the party.
Yeah, I know that she's been very active with Jim Worthington's group, right?
Yeah.
So I know that Jim Worthington's been part of this discussion.
Sure.
So what you have there is, of course, a very experienced fundraiser who's getting behind this change in the party. Now, I'm not sure we would agree with him on everything because I know he's a big advocate for mail-in ballots, right?
Yeah.
Which we've just studied to death and watched all this money, millions and millions of dollars poured into it to no avail. But I just think that's the mantra of the party, and it's hard for people to think through it if they haven't, looked at the things we have. I don't know enough about Ted Christian to know if he's likely to be someone who could actually embrace the community, put an end to this internal fighting.
Well, he is a Bucks native. He's done a lot of political work in Bucks and in the state. I know that people are excited to have him. Everybody, Chairwoman Poprick, she's been there a long time. She's raised a lot of money. She's gotten a lot of good candidates across the finish line. But everybody's ready for a change.
Well, listen, we've got to jump. We did invite Ted Christian on today. We'll try to get him on in the future. Ada, best of luck on at the election on Tuesday, and thanks for joining us to walk us through this. Folks, we'll be back next week to find out what happened. Thank you for joining us on The Conservative Voice on WWDB AM 860 in Philadelphia. Brendan, thanks for joining.
Absolutely.